the stories glow. Palm lantern ignite, where the tales will flow. Whispers of the night, under moonlit skies. Every word so bright, in your mind it lies.
Dorothy was at school, finishing up the day and preparing for the summer break, when she received several images from an unknown number. They were pictures of Pascal with a woman and a boy. The unknown sender told Dorothy to leave her husband alone. Dorothy was flustered and couldn't believe her eyes. The boy looked just like Pascal. She was so angry. How dare he make her fall in love with him, only to betray her like this? Her legs wobbled as she quickly sat down for support. After calming herself, she drove home. She cried herself to sleep, refusing to answer Pascal's calls or respond to his text messages. Pascal was worried, panicking that something bad might have happened to Dorothy. He asked another doctor to cover his shift and drove to Dorothy's place that evening. He knocked on the door, and Dorothy came outside with a long face, her eyes swollen from crying. "My love, what's wrong? Why haven't you been answering my calls? Is everything okay?" Pascal asked, rushing to hold her. She pulled away from his embrace. "You lied to me. You deceived me and made me fall in love with you," Dorothy replied, trying to hold back her sobs. "I'm lost." "What are you talking about?" Pascal asked, looking genuinely confused. "Your wife sent me pictures of you with your family. When were you going to tell me you had a family, Pascal?" "When?" Dorothy questioned, her voice shaking. "Dorothy, I don't have a family. I've never been married." "I don't know what you're talking about," Pascal said, still puzzled. Dorothy sent him some of the images and asked him, "Isn't that your wife and son?" "Dorothy, believe me when I say that I don't know these people. Someone is being mischievous here," Pascal pleaded, trying to reach out to her, but she moved further away. "I've been a fool," Dorothy said, tears streaming down her face. "It all makes sense now. Is that why you refused to let me visit your home for months at the beginning of our relationship?" "Dorothy, please don't do this," Pascal implored, his voice filled with anguish. "I love you and would never hurt you like this. I don't know who's trying to tear us apart, but I swear I'm not hiding anything from you." Dorothy, overwhelmed by her emotions, struggled to believe him. Pascal's heart sank as he saw the pain in her eyes. He was desperate to prove his innocence and uncover who was behind the deceit that threatened to end their relationship. "Pascal, I have more images where you were kissing your wife," Dorothy said, her voice trembling with hurt. "When you lied about being a janitor. I forgave you because I thought I understood. Now, it seems that you've been lying about everything." "Dorothy, I love you so much," Pascal replied, his voice earnest. "I repeat, I do not know these people. Why can't you believe me?" "Pascal, I've never loved anyone the way I love you," Dorothy said through her tears. "I don't want to see you ever again. Don't call me, and don't try to reach me. Maybe this relationship thing isn't for me. I'm just tired of having my heart broken. You're just like Victor, hurting people who love you." "All men are the same," Dorothy said angrily, her frustration evident. "Dorothy, please don't say that," Pascal pleaded, feeling a deep ache in his heart. "I'm not your ex, Victor, and not all men are the same. Why would you compare me to him?" Despite Pascal's pleas, Dorothy remained firm. She gently but resolutely asked him to leave. The drive back to his parents' home in Argyle was long and heavy with emotion. Pascal needed time to cool off and process everything. The image of Dorothy sobbing replayed in his mind. Who is trying to tear us apart? He wondered, feeling helpless. He missed Dorothy terribly and was tempted to call her, but he knew she needed space to deal with her emotions. He kept staring at the images, trying to piece together any clue that might reveal the identity of the blackmailer, but nothing came to him. A week passed, and both Pascal and Dorothy were miserable. Dorothy fell ill, unable to do anything productive. The sadness overwhelmed her to the point where she even lost the zeal to pray. Fortunately, she was on summer break, but all she could do was cry herself to sleep. Pascal, on the other hand, returned to Fort Worth. He focused on his company, refusing to let his relationship troubles affect his performance at work. People looked up to him, and he made sure to meet their expectations. But when he got home, the loneliness set in, and the absence of Dorothy weighed heavily on him. He left a few messages for her, but Dorothy didn't respond to any. Pascal knew she was a principled woman, and cheating was a deal-breaker for her. The only way to resolve this was to find out who was behind the deception. For the first time in a long while, he found himself praying alone. One day, while Pascal was in his office, Dr. Susan came to check on him. "How are you doing, my love?" she asked, her tone unnervingly casual. "Your love." "Susan, since when did I become your love?" Pascal asked, surprised by her forwardness. "Come on, Pascal. You know that I love you," she insisted. "Susan, you turned me down for months when I asked you out. You only started showing interest when you found out I owned Safe Haven, Susan. I've moved on. Dorothy is the woman for me. If you don't mind, I have work to do." Pascal gestured towards the door, making it clear that the conversation was over. After Susan left, Pascal continued working on his computer. But a nagging thought crept into his mind. What if Susan was responsible for those pictures? He shook it off. Susan might have her flaws, but she wasn't malicious. Yet, he couldn't help feeling guilty for how he'd treated her. She had been instrumental in the early days of Safe Haven, even though she had no idea that he owned the medical center. She didn't deserve such coldness from him. He decided to apologize and went to her office, only to find it empty. As he wandered through the hospital, he spotted Susan on the balcony, deeply engrossed in a phone call. Pascal approached quietly, catching enough of the conversation to leave him stunned. "How long have you been here?" Susan asked, her voice tinged with panic when she finally noticed him. "Long enough to know that you hired someone to send those pictures to Dorothy," Pascal replied, his voice heavy with disappointment. "Geez, Susan, how spiteful can you be? Why would you do such a thing? How did you even get Dorothy's number?" "I'm sorry, Pascal," Susan stammered. "I was jealous. I wanted you for myself." We were getting closer again until she came into the picture. "Getting closer? Susan, you were my friend. I had feelings for you, and I asked you out numerous times. You turned me down every time, claiming you weren't interested in relationships. Your feelings only changed when you found out I owned Safe Haven. Dishonest. I've moved on, and you need to do the same." "I'm so sorry, Pascal. I don't know what came over me," Susan pleaded. "I know what came over you. It was greed. Now, how did you get Dorothy's number?" Pascal asked, disgusted. "I overheard her talking on the phone with a service agent. When she was with you at the hospital, she called out her number, and I jotted it down. Susan, you better undo this mess if you don't want to find yourself in jail. I love Dorothy, and I can't live without her. Pray to whatever God you serve that she comes back to me, because if she doesn't, you'll see a side of me you won't like." With that, Pascal walked away. Susan, filled with regret, quickly called Dorothy. She introduced herself as Dr. Susan from Safe Haven, and Dorothy immediately recognized her as the cold doctor she had met before. "Dorothy, there's no easy way to say this. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused you and Pascal. He has never been married. I hired a graphic designer to create those AI photoshopped images. There's no excuse for what I did, and I'll accept whatever legal actions you decide to take." Dorothy was shocked by the admission. While she was appalled by Susan's actions, she also sensed genuine remorse. Choosing not to condemn someone who was truly sorry, she accepted Susan's apology and ended the call. Relieved to learn that Pascal wasn't married, She felt a wave of regret for not believing him. Without wasting time, she showered, dressed up, and drove from Argyle to Safe Haven in Fort Worth. When she arrived at the hospital, the receptionist informed her that Pascal was seeing a patient. Dorothy was allowed to wait for him in his office. Pascal, exhausted from a long day, was ready to head home when he opened the door to find Dorothy waiting for him. His heart leaped with joy, though he kept his emotions in check. She looked stunning in a white chiffon top, blue jeans, and matching heels. They stood there, staring at each other, their eyes filled with longing and unspoken words. Finally, they both tried to speak at the same time. Pascal gestured for her to go first. "I'm so sorry, Pascal," Dorothy began, her voice trembling with emotion. "I should have believed you when you said you weren't married. I was heartbroken and not thinking straight." "Dorothy, you compared me to that fraud, Victor," Pascal said, his voice carrying the hurt he had felt. "I'm sorry, and it won't happen again," Dorothy replied, her eyes pleading for forgiveness. "How have you been?" Pascal asked, his tone softening. "I've been a mess. I couldn't function properly. I cried myself to sleep every night. I love you, Pascal. Please forgive me for doubting you." "Come here," Pascal said, pulling her into a tight embrace. He inhaled the familiar scent of her hair, jasmine and cherry blossom, and felt a wave of relief wash over him. "I'm sorry, Pascal," Dorothy kept saying, her voice muffled against his chest. "It's okay. We can blame it on Susan," he said with a small smile. "How did you find out it was Susan?" she asked, curious. "She not now," Pascal whispered, capturing her lips in a kiss that was both reassuring and filled with love. After they broke the kiss, Pascal looked into her eyes and said, "Let's get married now. I don't want to wait till September." "What about the wedding plans we've already made?" "Besides, September is only 2 months and a week away," Dorothy responded. "The ceremony can still take place for our friends and family, but I want us to be married now. I don't want to ever lose you again. These past weeks have been miserable for me." Moved by his words, Dorothy agreed. She went home with Pascal that night. Pascal arranged for his assistant director to cover for him at work for a week. The next day, he contacted a judge friend at the Tarrant County Court to officiate their marriage that Friday. They had already obtained a marriage license, so everything was set. On Thursday, they went shopping. Dorothy picked out a beautiful, unconventional wedding dress, while Pascal chose a 3-piece black suit in a peaceful ceremony on Friday, June 19th, 2015. Pascal and Dorothy were joined in matrimony. Afterward, Pascal took his new wife home, where a company he'd hired had transformed the house with flowers and a table set with food and wine. Dorothy was surprised and delighted by the romantic setup. That evening, they enjoyed a quiet, intimate dinner, followed by a night filled with love and passion. Pascal cherished every moment with Dorothy, and their bond grew stronger. When Pascal returned to work the following Monday, everyone noticed the change in him. He was happier, whistling as he moved through the hospital. That weekend, Pascal and Dorothy drove to her house in Argyle to pack up her belongings. They decided to sell her home and keep Pascal's parents' house in Argyle for their occasional getaways. Dorothy moved in with Pascal in Fort Worth, and their life together was blissful. She made minor changes to the house, especially in the kitchen, and Pascal couldn't have been happier. He loved coming home to her, and they enjoyed the summer break together. In early September, they held a small ceremony, inviting colleagues from Argyle High School and staff members from Safe Haven. The event was beautiful, with Pascal and Dorothy exchanging vows that left everyone teary-eyed. After the ceremony, life returned to normal, with Dorothy commuting from Fort Worth to Argyle for work. It wasn't easy, and sometimes Pascal would pick her up after a long day. They both agreed that it would be best for Dorothy to find a job in Fort Worth. She applied for a history teaching position at a high school in Fort Worth, and luckily there was an opening. With her experience, she was quickly accepted, and was set to start in February 2016. Dorothy tendered her resignation at Argyle High School right before the Christmas break, While she missed her students, she knew she had a new life to build with Pascal. They spent a quiet Christmas together, following their family traditions of looking through photo albums, eating Kenyan ugali, and drinking chai tea. On December 29th, Dorothy took a pregnancy test after missing her period, overjoyed by the positive result. She couldn't wait for Pascal to return home so she could share the news. When Pascal returned home, Dorothy had run a warm bath for him and served him dinner. After he had eaten, they both settled on the couch to watch TV, with Dorothy resting comfortably in his arms. "Baby, guess what?" Dorothy said, her voice tinged with excitement. "You love me?" Pascal teased, gently running his fingers through her hair. "Yes, I love you, and you are going to be a father," she said, her voice trembling slightly as she broke the news of her pregnancy. "What, we're having a baby?" Pascal was so excited that he immediately scooped Dorothy into his arms, kissing her in a burst of joy. From that moment on, Pascal was determined to pamper Dorothy. He insisted that she stop doing house chores, hiring a housekeeper to handle everything. Dorothy insisted on cooking the family's meals. Pascal made sure to create a little garden at home to give her the natural scenery she loved. The garden became her sanctuary, a place where she could relax and connect with nature. As the months passed, Dorothy resumed work at Fort Worth High School, conveniently located just 10 minutes from their home. Life was peaceful and fulfilling for them. On September 25th, 2016, Dorothy gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Andrew Johnson in honor of Pascal's late father. Pascal was overjoyed and embraced his new role as a father with enthusiasm. He was a doting and caring father to Andrew. 4 years later, their family grew again with the arrival of 2 baby girls. They named their daughters after their mothers, Jane, born in June 2018, and Andrea, born in March 2020. Pascal was as hands-on as ever, hiring 2 housekeepers to help with the children, especially when both he and Dorothy were at work. But despite the extra help, he made sure to be present for his children in every way that mattered. Every evening, Pascal would read to his children before they went to bed. He told them stories about their grandparents, showing them pictures and making sure that their memories lived on through the generations. The bond between Pascal and Dorothy only grew stronger with time. On August 10th, they visited Pascal's parents' graves as a family. Each of them placed flowers on the graves, a quiet tribute to the love and guidance Pascal's parents had given him. Standing there, Pascal silently thanked his mother for sending such a good and gracious woman into his life. What had started as a misstyle with Dorothy had blossomed into a love that filled his heart. Pascal knew, as he stood there holding Dorothy's hand, that he had been blessed beyond measure. Their journey together, though filled with challenges, had led them to this moment, surrounded by love, family, and the lasting memories of those who had paved the way for their happiness.
Underneath the stars, worlds begin